You are watching the Deadfoot Diver Podcast with Kurt, the Deadfoot Diver.
Welcome to the Deadfoot Diver Podcast, where we talk about everything diving, technical diving, and especially the benefits of diving with disabilities. I'm very honored today to have with me one of the leading hyperbaric physicians in the world, Dr. Simon Mitchell. How's it going?
I'm going good, Kurt. How are you?
Awesome. Very nice to talk to you. Thank you very much for joining me today.
It's a pleasure.
So first of all, tell me how you first got into doing diving and then medicine.
I was very lucky. I grew up in a seaside suburb in Wellington, New Zealand, and diving was just what the kids did. You know, we wore jerseys and t-shirts. We didn't have wetsuits. We'd dive off a beach and, you know, had sticks with nails tied to them to try and catch fish. And it was just a kid's activity. And I just fell in love with it. Everything I saw just had this magic about it. And from that point on, virtually every decision I've made about my career, my recreational activities, it's had some kind of diving flavor to it. So after that, I progressed from snorkeling to scuba diving. I did a degree in marine biology, worked in that field for a while, and figured out actually at an early stage that what people are most interested in marine biology these days is how many fish they're allowed to catch, rather than the biology of the actual fish, which is what I was interested in. And so my other passion was diving. It was becoming diving physiology and the medicine associated with it. So I decided to do medicine, so changing career in my late 20s, and went to med school. And so that's where the medicine side of it came in. But, you know, consistent with what I said before, I just carried on making diving related decisions. So after med school, I went to the Navy. That was the only place to learn diving medicine. So I was in the Navy for about 8 years, operational dive team, diving medical officer. And after that, I decided to do hyperbaric medicine for a while full time, and ultimately anesthesiology. And that's kind of where I am now. But throughout it all, there's been this diving thread. And after the Navy came technical diving, where, you know, I was able to apply some of the stuff that I'd learned and done in the Navy to my recreational diving career. So, I mean, that's kind of a quick potted history of me. Yeah.
You've actually done some pretty impressive diving from what I've seen. Like, you do a lot of rebreather diving, which I was actually told by Peter Mesley when he was on. Because you guys dive together. He actually showed me a picture of you guys going off the front end of a loader to jump in.
Yeah, that picture got us into a whole lot of trouble, actually. There was a helicopter that crashed in a freshwater lake, a beautiful lake in New Zealand called Wanaka. The engine came off it. The family wanted the engine back for forensic purposes. It was in 74 meters. The Navy they saw it with an ROV, but they couldn't get a line on it from the ROV. And so we were asked to go down there and dive it. And it was just friends doing favors for friends. There was no money. There was nothing, you know, there was nothing professional about it. But that photo got taken of us sitting in the bucket of a front end loader being put in the water. And that looks pretty professional, right? So it looks a bit occupational. And when it appeared in the paper, the occupational safety and health people here in New Zealand gave me this very embarrassing phone call. And it was embarrassing because I'm one of their medical consultants. It was like, oh, sorry, Professor Mitchell, we have to ask you about your illegal commercial dive in Lake Wanaka, because you're not allowed to do a commercial dive out of the bucket of a front end loader to 74 meters without appropriate support, etc. But I did a bit of fast talking and convinced them that actually it was just us doing a technical dive as a favor for some friends. But it looked bad. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that would look kind of bad, wouldn't it? And those guys don't tend to take that sort of stuff lightly.
No.
At least I know in Ontario they don't if you do any illegal commercial work. So, so when you got into doing your technical diving, like how long after did you start? When did you start diving rebreathers?
Pretty much straight away, actually. It was very obvious to me that if you were going, especially down here in New Zealand, and actually I was in Australia at the time, but same thing really. It was obvious that if you were going to use helium, open circuit was not going to fly, because helium has always been and remains very expensive down here. And so although just to get the right ticks in the right boxes, I transitioned through open circuit trimix pretty quickly. I went fairly much straight to rebreathers, and rebreathers were new, right? Like, so we're talking 2001. So, the Inspo had only really just, hit the market about 2 or 3 years before. There were almost no other rebreathers around. And in fact, my first rebreather was a US Navy Mark 15.5, so the old sort of pre-Mark 16 rebreather. It was an awesome unit, although it became impractical fairly quickly because it had these Inconel spheres for gas cylinders, and if you took one of those into a dive shop and asked someone to fill it, they'd look at you like you'd, well, I won't get into any graphic detail, but they didn't like it very much. And so that just, especially for travel, and especially after 9/11, it was clearly a military device, and everyone was very suspicious of rebreathers at that time. So I transitioned away from that into other rebreathers. But yeah, like right from the start of my technical diving, it was kind of rebreathers.
Wow, that's really cool. And I mean, you still do a lot of impressive diving. I mean, you've done you helped identify the SS Cumberland. I also understand that you did in 2002 the deepest dive to a shipwreck.
Yeah, it was at the time. Yeah. So there was a famous wreck in Australia that it was actually a hospital ship that was torpedoed on its way from Sydney to Port Moresby, because the Japanese were right on Australia's doorstep at that point. And this ship sank very quickly. It had a full medical battalion on board, I think 263 or 4 Australian servicemen and women. Lots of medical people died, including 11 out of 12 female nurses who were going into a combat zone for the first time. So it was a big deal in Australia. And that, like all these wrecks, it got lost to history. And then about 1995, some dude claimed to have found it in 180 meters of water using an ROV. And the Australian government completely bought that story, and they gazetted the wreck site as it was called the Centaur. They built a church on the nearest point of land, and, the whole thing was, like it was memorialized. And we got the plans of the real Centaur and compared them to some of the video that had come out of this ROV, and we actually didn't think it looked like we thought it was the wrong wreck. But of course, you have to be careful talking like that, because you have all these people who think they know where their lost family members are, and there were even a few survivors alive at that time. And so we decided to dive it. Sorry, I'm not making a long story very short, but we ended up doing it. And yes, at the time, it was the deepest shipwreck dive that had ever been done. And that's not why we did it, of course. I mean, depth is a tool that gets you to places that you want to go to. It's not an end in itself, and I want to be very clear about that. But we did it because we wanted to solve this mystery. Anyway, turned out to be the wrong wreck. And that was very disappointing and quite discombobulating at the time, because, of course, we disenfranchised all these people who thought they knew, where this very sacred war grave was. But it's had a good outcome, that story.